My name's Neil Manning, and I run the production for Condor Cycles in London. Pretty much I look after everything from sourcing the materials, designing the geometries of the frames, what they're intended for, right through the painting process, productions of the frame, and right through to assembly of the finished bike for the customers. And that includes standard models in aluminium, carbon, steel and titanium, and also lots of custom builds. At present we produce around about 2,500 frames a year, of which 10% approximately are custom made, being custom geometry and custom colours as well. When I first started at Condors, most of our frames were built in the UK by UK frame builders, but most of them were either very slow with production or were retiring. So we took one of our frames out to the factory in Italy that had been building some aluminium frames for us and some carbon frames for us. We said, can you build something like this? They had a look and come back with some samples which were very good. So we tried a test pilot of 10 frames. Those 10 frames sold very, very quickly. From that day we've always increased and gone from 10 to 40 to what we now sell in steel frames in the thousands. And the frame builder that we are using in Italy were originally one of the many frame builders who used to be subcontractors for a lot of the main big brand names. In Italy, a lot of the companies were building for each other, and they relied on a lot of the big names, Colnago, Pinarello, etc., who used to give them work when they couldn't keep up their own production in their own factories. But over the last decade, a lot of the big manufacturers in Italy have moved away from steel and onto carbon, and now have the majority of their products made in the Far East, be it Taiwan or China. So a lot of these factories in Italy who were making traditional steel frames have either transformed and have made their own brand names, or they've finished. What we've done is actually taken a traditional family frame builder who used to make for a lot of large companies. They now make solely for us. In the last decade, Condors has moved from having a very small workshop and stockroom in the basement of the shop to now have two warehouse moves later. We're now in a very big industrial unit where we assemble all of the bikes outside of the shop, so that all the spaces in the shop is now retail. I must admit, all the test samples that we have here, they're all built in my size. I have to ride them all. I don't get a chance to ride many of them enough, but I think there's a lot. You need to know what it feels like. If it's not right, then the frame can't go into production. All of apart from Dan's original steel Super Achio, which I had a spin around the car park in, but every version since then I've built using exactly the same components and gone from frame to frame to frame so that I can feel the difference. A machine can tell you whether something is technically stiffer, but unless it feels right when you're on the road, there's no point. It has to feel right. Well, so when selecting the materials for Altan's bike, we took into consideration what he wanted to use it for, the conditions he was going to be riding in, and how we also wanted it to look aesthetically, because we wanted to recreate something of a style that we used to have as our top racing frame in the 80s, but it had to be for a more modern feel, slightly stiffer, slightly more modern looking. So we've chosen a lightweight Columbus Spirit tubes, oversized, a lot larger than we used to have on our original Baraki, but still nice round traditional shape, with the seat stays shot in at the back, but some special shapes on the chain stays to make the bike more responsive. And up front we've gone for a traditional external headset rather than the modern integrated that we use on most of our bikes these days. because we wanted to match it with a Columbus minimal fork, which has a real nice traditional shape, but made from carbon fibre. We're currently supporting the Rapha Condor Sharp team, mainly building them custom carbon fibre frames, which are still handmade in Italy, but now also the steel Criterium frame that two of the riders will be racing this year in the Tour Series. We like to support younger riders, and the team's taken on a new stance this year where we've taken on and we're hoping to develop young riders. So by the time they've had 2 years with the team, they should be ready to make that next step into hopefully a bigger team, which we actually had last year with John Tinn and Locke, who had a great ride in the Tour of Britain and has now moved on to Enduro, where he's been able to display his talents on a world stage, and I'm sure next year he'll be moving on to Pro Tour status. We love our involvement with the Rapha Condor Sharp team. We've always sponsored teams ever since all the early pictures we've got of Monty doing race service when he was 18 or 19 years old. We've always supported either teams or local riders or international riders where possible.